Welcome, everybody, to another spectacular episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Reeves, and this is the show where we, of course, inform you about video games, the video games that are worth playing, at least. Joined with me today, we have Dan Tack.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Great to be here, as always, Ben. Thanks for having me.
That's right. You're wearing a Blockbuster hat?
Yep, that is correct.
Me?
Be kind, rewind.
No explanation necessary. Jeff Cork is also here.
How's it going, buddy?
Good. Glad to have you on. And, of course, Alex Van Aken. How's it going?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, no problem. You did well. And I was like, Alex,
passed the test.
Sadnick, get to the curb, buddy. I don't even want to bother kicking you. Just get over there. It's Alex's show now. This is very confusing. Anyway, there's a lot going on in the world. But we're not going to talk about everything that's going on in the world. We just want to talk about some positive things, some good things, give you a little spot of positivity here. Because you know what? Video games rule, right, guys? They're pretty cool.
Yep. Sometimes.
Hey, I'm for them, personally.
Yeah.
That's true. There are some that aren't great. Hot take.
Yeah.
Later on in the show, we have an interview with Brenda Romero. You guys familiar with her?
Yeah.
She's a developer that's been around a really long time, since the early 80s. She worked on the Wizardry series on PC. Her newest studio, Romero Games, aptly named, they're working on a game called Empire Sin, which is kind of a strategy blend of XCOM and Civilization type games where you play as a gangster set in Prohibition. So you build up your empire and try to sell alcohol to the masses, and of course get in a lot of gunfights. It's pretty fun based on what I played. The interview it's good. It's fine. We did a fine one this time. I think there's some good nuggets in there, so enjoy that at the end of the show. And I don't know what else you could more want.
Yeah, you don't have to oversell it. Good grief.
Hey, let me know what you think. All right, should we move on with the show? We have our playlist where we talk about the games we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to go first? How about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I just reviewed newest entry in the Yakuza series, Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is so good and so fun.
Good job getting the name right and not calling it Yakuza 7 like a goon.
Oh, really? Are people doing that?
Somebody on this podcast might have during an interview with
Yakuza. No.
But yeah, that is embarrassing. It is the 7th game, I believe, but it's not called Yakuza 7. It's called Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing different about it, because this is an RPG.
Well, it's always had like RPG elements. Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that distinguishes this one is it's a turn-based RPG. So it's not like you've got underlying stats that govern your, the power of your abilities and your unlocking and things like that. That's always, been in this series. This is like straight up, what are you going to do? Who are you targeting? What ability do you want to use? And all that kind of stuff. A turn-based RPG.
Like kind of Final Fantasy 10 style.
Yeah. So it's happening in 3D. And people
fair?
That seems fair. Yeah, that seems like a good analogy.
Like Dragon Quest 11, maybe? Something a little bit more recent?
Is that the dragon it's like?
I mean, I'm wondering. I'm asking.
That's what the dragon is like. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, there are direct Dragon Quest references in the game too. So it really leans into all the archetypal RPG things. Like there is a dungeon that drags a little bit, but it's just like a giant labyrinth underground where you fight a bunch of creatures and that kind of thing. But this being a Yakuza game, the creatures, it's very similar, kind of give you kind of an Earthbound vibe in a way, where you're fighting like, here's some weirdo hippie who's like mesmerizing you with his dance moves, and they've always had like kind of a skewed take on urban living in the series, right? But you fight your like goons and Yakuza guys and thugs and that kind of stuff, but then they also have some like straight up weirdos. Like at nighttime, there are these guys that will appear, and they basically, their legs are sticking out of garbage cans and their head sticks out the top, but their arms are inside the garbage bags. So they're just kind of being goofy, and they'll like rummage through the bag and throw things at you and stuff. It's very, very silly.
So would you say it's even sillier than previous Yakuza games?
The tone of Yakuza games have always kind of like, there's like the very serious story. Like if you just critical path it is like very melodramatic and very serious, but the sub stories are always like very silly and that kind of a thing. And this definitely leans into that. You've got also what they call pound mates, which are like the summons.
Do you want to know
game.
what that is?
Well, it's like a joke because like he gets the new hero gets presented with a flyer on the street saying like, "Hey, check out these pound mates," and he thinks it's something sexy, but it just turns out to be these are like summons basically. And as you complete side missions, other people will join you, and you can kind of call them into battle. So it'll be things like a boxer will come in. You know, if you've played any previous ones, you'll recognize this guy. And then, but other really weird things like a crawfish will come down, or like a chicken will appear, or like it's supremely
it sounds like a fever
stupid.
dream.
Yeah, it absolutely gives off a fever dream vibe, but it is so fun and so good. And I was kind of skeptical going into it about the RPG stuff because I like the series and I like how things have been, and I was kind of afraid that it wouldn't feel like it belonged with the rest of them, but it absolutely does. It's phenomenal. It's so good.
This all sounds pretty good. Does it still have a serious narrative at the core? Is there still some meat there?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And is this so? I've always been highly interested in Yakuza games. Some of my best friends love them.
Yeah.
There's kind of been that hurdle of, okay, well, now you have to play Yakuza 0, you have to play Kiwami, you have to play this, you got to play that. And so I've just been like, I'm going to wait for Like a Dragon because I knew it was a new protagonist. So for people like me, is this a good jumping in point to the series?
I have to, if I'm going to be straight up honest with you, I think you're hopeless. Because Yakuza 0 was absolutely designed with you in mind.
Okay.
And you said no. So like if that's not good enough for you, buddy. No, but absolutely, like seriously though, like if you're not familiar with the like previous entries, this is a great place to start. Okay. Even though the combat system is a radical departure from what's come before. The general, like all the side activities that you've seen, or most of them are there. So there's like you can play like batting cage stuff, there's like golf, there's like kart racing stuff. So like go to our Sega arcade and play a bunch of old like Space Harrier and Outrun stuff like that. So,
all I know is that the only part I've seen of the previous games is just I always go to my friend's stream. I watch every single stream. It's always just like some restaurant management mini game of sorts. Is
this
that
one
like
there's not a restaurant management game. There is just like a general business managing mini game that is super fun. If I don't know if everyone's gonna like it. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of like a nice put a podcast on and grind on that for a while. And the payoff for it, you get a pound mate or it's not a pound mate, it's just like a special ability, but it's really powerful. I don't want to say what it is because it's funny. You should experience that for yourself.
That's cool.
There are some like story references to like you'll see some things that are direct references to previous entries in the series, but it's not something where you're going to feel alienated or like feel like you have to look it up to figure out context. They do a good job of kind of explaining everything. Yeah. And you've got a new hero, you're in a new city. So that's one of the things that I really liked about it too, is that it feels like a lot of the baggage, as much as I like all that baggage and I like that sense of history with characters and the relationships and everything like that. It's nice to have a fresh start because they could tell the story that in some ways is a lot smaller because you're just kind of getting acclimated to this new place and getting part-time employment and meeting these people that join your party and everything. So at the beginning, it feels very like low stakes, but in a good way, where it's just like, hey, mop these floors. And then you kind of learn about like what's going on in Yokohama over time. And then eventually just balloon out of control and just this vast government conspiracy that's very complicated stuff, but it eases you into it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any favorite side activities?
Favorite side activities? I really liked the business management one. The kart racing is surprisingly fun. So much of it too is just like the weird submission, like the sub stories that you find into, where like you'll run into somebody and they'll tell you about their ridiculous problem they're having, and then you solve it. And it's one of those you don't want to get into it because so much of it is just like not knowing what's coming next. I will say, like, there is a chain with a guy who manages a circus, and there's like 3 or 4 like little steps to it, and it is very dumb and very funny. And if you ever see that guy, I highly recommend engaging with him because it's worth it.
It's the Yakuza games. I'm not speaking really from experience. I played 0 and that's about it. But based on that limited experience, they feel like they're so good at presenting just dumb things in a really funny way. Like they're just good, humorous games. Yeah. And it's kind of nice to see that coming from Japan, and I don't mean that as an insult to Japan in their humor at all. It just feels like a lot is often lost in translation, and Yakuza is able to like sort of maintain that level of just absurdity that works in a nice way.
Yeah, the localization team at Sega America does a crazy good job too of just putting things into context for Western audiences. You feel like you're seeing something that's like translated fairly faithfully, but captures just the weirdness of everything that's going on, which is nice, because I know some like older games that you'd play that came from Japan, it just felt like it was another weird layer kind of added on top of something rather than like a translation that was integrated into the actual experience, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. Dan, are you a Yakuza guy?
I've never played one. I'm actually looking forward to this one to be my first one. I know we already had the Yakuza 0 conversation, but the thing is, I really like turn-based RPGs.
There you go.
So that is why I'm super interested in this. And it's weird. Turn-based RPG? Okay, well, sign me up. I'll take 2.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely playing this.
Yeah, you will be in no shortage of, if you decide to stream it, there's no shortage of things to react to. I promise you that.
Excellent. Oh, yeah. Dan reacts. Here we go. My favorite time.
Are the RPG systems and the mechanics, are they pretty meaty? Is there something to sink your teeth into there?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got like characters have basically like a job system that is presented quite literally. Like you go to an employment agency and you qualify for different positions based on your relationships with your party members, which improve as you participate in combat with them and do like little side activities and that kind of thing. And the jobs are things like you could be a chef, you could be a breakdancer, which apparently is a job. You could be like a bodyguard or an enforcer. There's like a lot of like a host or a casino dealer. Each one has like its own primary weapon that can be upgraded, gear that you can equip as you complete missions and you find it around the world. And yeah, so it does feel substantial. It doesn't feel like you're just like, okay, here's my healer type. There's a fair amount of flexibility. Your characters are well suited for certain things, but you can, if you want to have 4 breakdancers, I guess, go for it. I guess it will give you something to react to, Dan.
Hey,
lots of
apparently
popping and
there's not
locking.
going to be any shortage there. I've looked at some of the summons already. I mean, it'll be pretty epic.
It's so good.
I'm excited to dive into this one. I've been eyeing Yakuza 6 because I'm a maniac, and I was thinking maybe I'll just jump to the end of the series and experience that. And also Blake said I should, so I'll trust him on that one. But now that this is almost out, I might just do this instead because, like Dan, I like turn-based RPGs, and I don't play as many of them as I used to.
Yeah.
So this could be a fun little experiment.
Yeah.
Is the review up on the site now?
It's on the site.
What'd you give it?
Yeah, 925. I love it.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You think it ranks pretty high on your Game of the Year list?
Absolutely. I don't know
what
what
do
you want me to say. Yes.
I want you to say it's the best game you've ever played is what I was hoping for, but
It's the best game I've ever played. Does that make you feel better?
There we go.
Yeah.
Now we
got
can flip
it.
that out. We got that. Yeah.
music to my ears. Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. Cool. You been playing anything else, Quark? Or you just had time for that?
That and a little bit of Watch Dogs Legion, but primarily once I get the code for Like a Dragon, that was like head down on that because those games are notoriously large. So it's definitely not something where it's just like nibble away at it a little bit. It took a long time.
Yeah, I've been playing Watch Dogs as well, and I know Alex, you were saying you've been playing some Watch Dogs.
Yeah,
you want to talk a little bit about that?
Let's do it. I'm probably 2 hours in. I'm not sure how far you are. Kind of been head down as well, working on some projects. But in my free time, I've been playing it, and I really enjoy it. This is actually my first Watch Dogs game, and I've been looking forward to it since it was first shown off, specifically for like the systemic gameplay, sort of like the main hook, taking over any NPC. I was like, man, that sounds really exciting in terms of, playing an open world game, right? Typically, I kind of bounce off of traditional Ubisoft, they kind of have a formula to them. And I feel like this one kind of breaks that up a bit in the way that, like I said, you can take over any NPC. And that's been where like the core of my enjoyment has come from, was just like scanning so many people and seeing all these weird occupations paired with like weird factoids that then play into the perks of those characters. It's really well done in that regard, at least so far for me. And yeah, I'm mostly playing it as a stealth game. How about you, Ben? Are you more so like run and gun, or do you how do you kind of approach each encounter?
I'm sure I'll play more stealth as I progress. That's something that I tend to gravitate towards. It's definitely something that I did in Watch Dogs 2. I played pretty stealth heavy. I don't know, Cork, are you stealth guy?
Typically, yeah. That's what I did with Watch Dogs 2. At least the thing that I would always do is just call the police and a gang onto a target or an area, and then they would fight and everything, and then I would just walk in afterward and kind of pick up the pieces, which is something you can't do in this one. But yeah, typically stealth is what I'm into, and hacking, kind of like maintaining Overwatch and controlling a situation from a distance whenever possible.
Yeah, I love sneaking up behind people. Apparently, it's a secret. I don't know if it's a secret really, but it's something that I get unnervingly excited about, is sneaking up on people and taking them down.
Yep.
One thing I've noticed in this game is just the open world I'm less excited about. Just the open world, exploring that open world and like the side activities. I think Ubisoft does a good job with that in Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, but I feel like Watch Dogs is kind of a tier below that in terms of open worldness. But I haven't dove too far into the grabbing any character you want. I have a few characters that I really like. But I think that system of like, hey, you can play whoever you want is really that's gonna be the big selling point here.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see how it affects. I know Marcus spoke to it on last week's episode a little bit about, how it kind of affects the story. And I believe he said like overall it does a decent job at it. So, but yeah, I'm just enjoying, using all the different gadgets and drones, since I haven't really, I've played it here and there, but I haven't really ever like dove into Watch Dogs. And so even some of the series returning elements are new to me. And so there's probably a little more freshness there compared to, you all who have already played those sorts of games before. So.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. Marcus talked about it last week. I believe he gave it a 9. Reviews on the site if you want to check that out. You been playing anything else, Alex?
That, and I've been getting ready for World of Warcraft Shadowlands. So I dove back in probably 2 months ago. I renewed my subscription for the first time in a big way in years, and have been catching up on all the Battle for Azeroth quest lines and all of that, getting ready for the new expansion. And so now I'm max level. And I'm just in the cosmetic game, just going and redoing old raids. And there's like something really calming about that, just being able to kind of deck your character out how you see fit. And yeah, I'm getting ready for the new. I think it's coming out late November now. I'm not sure the exact release date, but I'm ready. I'm ready to dive in. I'm playing a rogue, and I think I might roll a new druid. So we'll see what happens.
Dan, you're playing this too, right?
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. I'm pretty much done until they put out the new the new invasion content. I think that's in like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So once that comes out, we'll be able to gear our characters out for the release on the 23rd, I believe it is.
Are you gonna go? Do you have a particular character you want to kind of?
I'm gonna be playing it. I'm gonna play a shaman in this expansion, I think. But I have. You don't want to know how many 50s I have. Okay, it's an absurd amount. Several different character sheets full of max level characters. Since it's really easy to level them now, especially.
Yeah,
they made it so much easier.
I know I've seen people because I was ending my Battle for Azeroth stuff as new folks were coming in from the new leveling system, which is like you get to level 10, I believe, and then you pick an expansion to level through, and that just gets you to up to level cap for Shadowlands. So pretty cool.
Well, Dan, if you're not playing a ton of WoW right now, what are you playing?
Oh gosh, I got so much, Ben. But let's talk about one in particular first. I want to give this game some credit. It's called Visage.
I've heard that name before. Maybe on a recent
definitely
Game Informer Spooktacular episode.
Right, and ironically, we talked about the possibility that it could be coming out this Halloween during that episode, and lo and behold, it happened. Very mysteriously.
Yeah, you trumpeted this game hard. You were saying like it does kind of the PT thing, right? Super
Absolutely.
spooky, atmospheric thing. But you seem to like it better than PT. Am I right in saying that?
Well, PT is a limited experience. I don't know what PT would have looked like had they made it a full experience.
I think we can judge PT as it was.
Yeah, I'd say this is a natural progression and a spiritual successor to what PT was as a basis, and then they take it in some different directions. Obviously, there's a lot more things going on. This game is much longer than PT. So, but you don't have to say Jareth into a phone or anything.
Oh, good. I hate doing
Right.
that. So what's the deal? Aside from being horror game, anything else you can say? Is there a story?
So it's a first-person horror game. It's one of what I would consider a Prey type horror experience, where you do not have any, ostensible defenses against anything that comes after you. You do have, you have a sanity system, so you have to stay in the light when you go into the dark. This is similar to Amnesia. When you're in the dark too long, your sanity will take a hit. You'll start seeing things. If your sanity goes too low, you'll be killed by something terrible. And the house is constantly trying to mess with you by slamming doors, turning off lights, trying to trap you, and many other weird things. Like, this game goes crazy places, like insane places. Like, you don't spend the entire time in the house. You will be pulled out of the house in interesting ways, very clever ways. This game pulled off. Like, it's very surreal at points, and it's very disturbing. It will upset you. It will make you very uneasy. Anxieties through the roof throughout the entire experience. It builds up the tension and then it releases it. It's very sparing with the jump scares, but there are a few. But when they hit, man, do they ever hit, because you're not ready for them. And
we could all use a little bit more anxiety right now.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that we need any more anxiety in our lives. I'm saying if you like horror games, this is an absolute slam dunk.
Awesome.
I've been thinking about this game since the first time I played it 2 years ago, when it came out in early access, also during Halloween. And I kept thinking to myself, what game is scarier than this? I don't know. Well, I'll wait for the full game. And, I thought about it. There is no scarier game that I've played.
Ever.
So it's the scariest game I've ever played. It's awesome. I would love to see what the studio could do with a giant budget. This game was a Kickstarter fueled thing, and it's got, some indie quirks. The inventory system is atrocious. I can't believe that's not one of the things that they didn't alter from early access to the final build, considering everybody complained about it then, and they didn't change it, and it sucks. That part sucks.
Well, what makes it so bad?
Just like,
maybe that's part of the horror experience.
No.
Just how scary bad it is.
Just trying to do things, especially when you're using like a two-handed item and then going to a one-handed item, or just trying to control how you're like holding your candles and using your lighters. It can be, you're fighting with the game. You're not trying to. That part is one part which was a miss on the game's part, big time. So that part's not great, but everything else is impeccable. Like, it's a beautiful game. It's super scary. Sound is great. Everything's on point. It's if you are into horror games and you're always saying, well, there's not really any scary games out there. That's probably true, but this game will be at the top of the list.
Yeah. Without spoiling anything, can I ask you if a couple of things are in the game? For instance, is there a wheelchair on its side with one wheel moving?
There is a wheelchair. I don't recall it ever being on its side with one moving.
Yeah. How about a music box? Or the sounds of a music box?
There are music involved terrors, but no explicit music box, I do not believe.
How about sorry.
You've got some other musical eccentricities that will evoke feelings.
Okay.
Is there a young girl with hair over her face?
There is a
like a Wednesday Addams type.
There's a The Grudge style.
How about a faulty, staticky television?
Ooh.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and a radio? Faulty static radio?
There is a nasty radio. There's a nasty TV. It certainly takes you on a trip through some of the tropes, but they never feel tropey. You're never like, oh, that's the Grudge girl, or gosh, there's a staticky TV. But the way that it's portrayed and done is very interesting. Like, at certain points in the game, you get several key items that help you do things, like a compass to wander through a large mausoleum and cemetery, or the camera, one of the most classic ones. That one was still back in the early access portion, where you can't use your lights, so all you've got is the camera. So you're walking through halls and rooms with the flash, attempting to surmise what's there. It's very good stuff. Like, even though we've seen that before, like that scene's in Saw and probably other horror movies, but like using that kind of thing is it's done very well. You do feel the apprehension, and that's important. Like, the game really does an amazing job at getting you invested and into those situations. Like, wow, this is really effed up. But I'm, as a horror fan, this is what you're looking for. You want to have that adrenaline rush and the tension there.
You want it to be effed up.
Yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
It does not disappoint in those categories.
My mind's still blown that you think this is the scariest game ever. Like, what was the previous?
Well, what's your scariest game ever? I would have said the original Amnesia for me.
Super Mario 2.
Super Mario 2, really? I mean, it's a good pick, but do you have a real one?
I don't know.
That's why I'm saying.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. Soma. I don't know if that's like super. There's some good intense parts, but the original Amnesia is probably up there too.
So I think that this game, if you're not like a super like horror-y person, you probably I can see people putting it down after like 10, 15 minutes. They just won't be able to like they're going to get paralyzed in fear of like just even going up to the second floor of the house. God forbid going into the basement or any of the other areas.
Yeah, I struggle in phasmophobia with that already. So and that's, Poltergeist. So
I mean, I don't even like going into my basement personally.
Yeah, who does, right? And imagine one like a billion times scarier.
So what'd you give it? You gave it a review, right?
I did. We got a review on the site. It's got an 8.75. Points off for like, bugs and the inventory system. No giant bug scares that I can recall in that, actually.
You know what? Honestly, I don't need them. It's not that bugs aren't scary. They can be creepy, but mostly it's just like gross, right?
Yeah, they have to appear like on a plate of yucky food. And then there's your bug.
You have the classic scene where you're like eating some delicious food. You turn away for a minute, you look back, and then it's a slithering mass of insects.
Oh, the classic Poltergeist gag. Love it.
It all comes back to Poltergeist. And
absolutely.
There might be a Poltergeist gag there are lots of nods in this game. So if you're a big horror fan, there's some homages all over the place.
Perfect. Great. Well, in terms of, I don't have a lot to add to the playlist this week. Dan, were you done? Did you play anything else?
I got other stuff. I'm continuing on with Genshin, just still waiting for the big patch next week.
Okay. That is a game I've been playing, Dan. And
wow,
man, when do you start to like it? Like when, because it's just like everybody kept comparing it to Breath of the Wild, which maybe, and I get the comparisons totally, but for somebody who really loved Breath of the Wild, Genshin has not clicked for me yet. I played like 5 hours or so. If
you're into the open world and doing the open world stuff, like you're outside of the tutorial, then if it hasn't clicked, it probably won't.
I just don't feel like there's enough like long-term hooks for me. Yeah, the game has them, but like the ones that are there, the gacha box stuff, like I'm not into that. So
I haven't used the gacha box in about a month. I'm saving all my gacha stuff. Like you don't have to use that. You've got other.
Well, I don't feel like I have to, but I just don't understand why I want to continue exploring this world. I guess to see what's in it and to fight new cool bosses and meet new characters. I get the same hooks of any other exploration-based RPG, I suppose. You're right. I should re-examine my life. I don't ask you to re-examine your life. If you don't like it, you don't like it. Not everybody likes it. It's not that I dislike it. I don't get it yet, and I want to like it. Yeah. So you've got your team. You can like swap between your characters, do elemental combinations on monsters. You're roaming the open world, sort of discovering puzzles and secrets and cool new gear, maybe. Yeah, I'll give it another try. You do anything? I'm not. Hey, if it doesn't click, it doesn't click. Yeah, it doesn't click, man.
If you ever want to go to Yokohama, maybe I can interest you in a game.
I do want to play that game. I have been playing a couple other games I can't talk about until next week, unfortunately.
Very mysterious and exciting.
I know. Sorry to be secret, but I can't wait to tell you about them. With that, I think we're done with the playlist.
I got one other small. Dan,
I just closed the playlist door.
All right.
You're gonna open it up again?
I'd like to just take a quick peek. Another horror fan inclined thing. It's a very small indie that you can play through in a couple of sessions. It's called the Dread X3 collection. They've done 3 of these things. Basically, like they're created from game jams. Essentially, like people get 10 days to make their game entry to put into it, and they're all like horror games, right? Just like mini horror games. Some of them are good, others aren't so good. There's some pretty interesting ones in the 3rd collection. I'm sure we're going to get a 4th collection, but they're cute and they're fun, and it's like a cheap pickup if you're interested in just some like really, really indie horror stuff. Like there's like a WarioWare style horror game in there, and there's how does that work? Spookware. It's just a bunch of bugs on plates. There's no bug on plate one that I don't recall, but it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that on Steam or Itch?
It's on Steam. Yeah.
Okay.
What's it called again?
Dread X Collection 3. There's 3 of these things. They're all good, by the way. but I think they're getting more clean as they continue to make them. Cool. It's like an anthology. Right. There's like 12 games in there, I think. Something.
Perfect.
All right, I'm done. Sorry, Ben.
It was worth it. It was worth it, Dan. Cool. Thanks for bringing that to the table. Cool. Well, you guys want to move on to emails?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And welcome back. We're still here. We're going to go over some emails. This is emails that you send in, podcast@gameinformer.com. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your feelings. We want to hear how much you love or hate us. And mostly we just want to hear your questions so we have something to talk about for the next half hour. Once again, podcast@gameinformer.com if you want to send us an email. Also, if you're wondering why we're maybe not talking about the new consoles this week, because the embargoes have definitely started to drop. The Xbox Series X is up, and PS5, that embargo releases on Friday. So if you're listening to this after Friday, you can go jump back into your podcast feed and you'll find a special edition podcast of the Game Informer show waiting for you, where we talk about both the new consoles. We'll probably talk a little bit about a few of the games that we played on there. So you get 2 bonus episodes this week. So don't write to us about that, but write to us about anything else. Podcast@gameinformer.com. Such as this first email from Dan Phantom. They say, "Hey crew, simple question. Do you think Game Pass will eventually hurt devs? Like if a developer decides not to put their game on Game Pass, will that create a backlash on the developers or other scenarios, which might be like if people don't support a game until it comes to Game Pass? Do you think that'll hurt that developer? I feel like Game Pass is going to be a double-edged sword this generation. Thoughts?"
It sounds oddly similar to whenever, a new indie game comes out, they're like, bring it to Switch. I'm not playing till Switch. I don't know if I see it happen. I mean, it could, but I don't know if, they're necessarily going to get backlash for it. I think you just have hopeful fans who, want to play it, in their, based on where they want to play it. Right. So I don't know if there's necessarily going to be backlash. Will people wait and wait to play it for free or, through Game Pass? Maybe. But what do you guys think?
I mean, all we can do is speculate, obviously, to this question. But I think so far, the feedback from developers as far as being on Game Pass is extremely positive. Mm-hmm. It's worked out really well for them. For smaller titles, it gives you a ton more discoverability, and that for your get your next game all hype. I think there's a ton of advantages to it. As far as a backlash, people having well, I'm not going to play X because it's not on Game Pass. I guess sure. Eventually these so now we're getting into real speculation territory, but eventually these things are going to be consolidated. You're going to have 3 to 4 different Game Pass options or solutions for your subscription pleasure. You get the Xbox pack, the PS pack, and then you can just dial down. They're going to do it like the Amazon channels is my guess in the future, where you've got your publishers, I'm going to get my EA pass and I'm going to get my my Blizzard pass or whatever, however it all shakes out, just examples, right? And you'll be able to access those titles on those passes. But, eventually I think it'll work out. I don't think it's going to hurt devs. I'll tell you that. It might change a lot of the, how we as consumers can, get our games and own our games and all that fun stuff, which we won't at all. I mean, but yeah, so that's, it's a different future. I don't think it's bad for developers, though. I guess that's to answer the question directly. I do not think it will be bad for developers.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad for developers either. I mean, just as a reminder, too, the games that are going on Game Pass, the developers get paid for that by Microsoft. So Microsoft it's kind of like the games with gold situation, which if you look back at the beginning of this previous generation, you could have maybe said the same thing about games with gold or PlayStation Plus games, where it's hey, is this going to be bad for developers? They're kind of giving away their game for free, but not really. They're getting paid by Sony and Microsoft to put those games on those systems. And in some cases, say Fall Guys, for example, or Rocket League is another great example. When those games came to those platforms, it was an incredible boost to their user base, and then also it allowed them to generate even more revenue, especially after they rolled off of the free platform. So I don't know that's a perfect one-to-one example with Game Pass, but there's probably some similarities there. I think the big onus is if it's good for consumers, it's probably okay for developers. The big question mark is like, is it worth the money that Microsoft is putting into it? I think is the question. Is it going to be worth it for Microsoft in the long run? And that I don't know.
Right. Again, we can only speculate that. Like that thing, like, obviously, it's got a ton of startup costs, and getting everybody on board with it also extremely expensive. But then eventually, if you can consolidate all those devs, right, if you have them into your ecosystem, then, you know, if you're the only game in town, where are people shopping? You know, that's you make it cheap, you get everybody in, you kill everybody else off, and then everybody's using your service. Since the tactic is old as time, right?
Why do you have to kill everybody, Dan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant
why does it have to get violent?
Eliminate the competition through peaceful means, through having superior service and better quality games. How does that? That sounds better, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Next email, Chris from Cheersville. They write in and says, the upcoming release of Gears Tactics on consoles made me realize that I haven't played a Gears game since the release of Gears 1, which that's interesting that Tactics drew you back in. So congrats. Anyway, Chris says, so I decided to just pound through all of them on Game Pass in the last couple of weeks. So we played through all of the Gears games. I just finished Gears 3, and so far I'm really enjoying seeing the game evolve through a console life cycle in real time, which that is kind of fun to like play. I did that with Uncharted like last year, and it was kind of fun to watch the jump from 1 to 2 and then 3, 4, etc. Chris says, this evolution was really evident to me in the character models used in these 3 games. Anya going from buttoned up dress uniform to her big cog armor was a highlight. Marcus's soul patch getting somehow even more soul patchy is another. Anyway, he says, can y'all think of any other characters that graphically / stylistically go through dramatic evolutions across their games? Or is there ones that you would like to see get a dramatic overhaul in the upcoming generation?
We can go
one that
I
I didn't want this to happen, but you remember Bomberman and Bomberman Act Zero? Yeah, that was gross. That was a pretty significant shift too, right? He turned into a real boy.
Is that what it was? Or wasn't there some version of Bomberman where he's a giant robot? Like he was kind of a Master Chief looking character?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what it was? He was a boy under that armor?
No. It was a Pinocchio reference for all the smart guys out there.
It was a good one.
I'm not smart enough. You should know that by now, Quark.
Yeah, but that was a jarring transformation for a character, I would say.
Yeah. Bomberman's a pretty good choice.
I'd say Nidhogg, something in more recent years where you go from that pixel art to the grossly 3D, like grotesque looking, animations and I feel like for a lot of fans that was like I personally enjoyed it, but I feel like that was kind of a marked shift in terms of character design and art direction and that sort of thing. I don't know about the personal journey of the character, but yeah, I don't know. Nidhogg.
It's kind of fun. I mean, this is way back, but if you look back at Sonic the Hedgehog's, and how he's evolved over time, that original design, he was kind of like a roly-poly kind of character, a little bit more rotund, which is kind of fun. And now he's like this sleek racing machine, I guess. I kind of like that old, almost Garfield-esque design. Personally,
yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a bunch. There's got to be something more this generation.
Well, Pac-Man grew some dang arms and legs. That was weird.
Gosh, that is weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say you could take any of the old 2D like Zeldas or Marios and you can see them transform through, making the jump to 3D to then, the weirder iterations, Paper Mario or Link Between Worlds, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or even Ezio from the Assassin's Creed franchise, which you watched. He had 3 games, right? He had the Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and then Revelations or whatever it was. Yeah. It was kind of fun when in Revelations, he was an old man. So it was kind of fun to see like him as an old guy.
That's a good pick.
Yeah. Anybody who like really needs an upgrade? Anybody who needs like a total like reinvention?
I don't know about a reinvention, but I miss Sam Fisher for sure.
Oh man.
You know who we should reinvent?
Splinter Cell.
Sam Fisher.
Here it comes.
Yeah.
Bubsy, obviously. Come on, let's do it.
Man.
All right, I had to.
Yeah, I would love Sam Fisher. You know what would be great? Just ignoring Dan completely is if Sam Fisher came back and he was like an old guy. I don't know if I'm just getting old or something, but I kind of like playing as old guys now, or just having that like he's just an old, not withered, but like still
gruff.
I don't know, old man strength kind of a character or woman. I don't know. That'd be cool to play as an older lady too.
Play as his daughter, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but then is she an old woman? How much in the future are we going? But yeah, if Sam Fisher came back and he was like an older guy, like coming out of retirement, I'm gonna do this one last mission and retire.
They kind of got that.
That's
sort
a new
of vibe
story,
with
right?
Siege. That would be exactly. They've kind of got that going on with Siege with his inclusion as I think his like operative name is Zero, but it's Sam, and he's kind of got that sort of aesthetic going on. I think it'd be dope to flesh that out.
Man, I just want a new Splinter Cell game. Like that's the real answer.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Ubisoft, do it.
You know they're gonna. Come on.
Eventually.
It's still gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
It's taking too long. That's the real problem.
All right.
All right, next email. Yeah, I think you'll like this one, Dan.
Oh.
Nick from Duluth writes in, what's Dan's problem? No. He says, thank you all for doing an incredible job on the podcast. I've been a Game Informer magazine subscriber for many years, and I will always renew my subscription as I feel that you have the best editors in the entire industry. Thank you, Nick. I have a PlayStation 5 pre-ordered, and Demon Souls is very intriguing. I have never played a Souls game before, but I'd like to expand my gaming palette this generation. Do you recommend this as a jumping on point for newcomers, or should I start with a Souls-like game like Bloodborne or something else?
Well, I haven't played the new Demon Souls yet, but if I'm going to go back to the other one, I would say probably not the one you should start with. It's while it is easier than some of the other Souls games, it's sort of where the work got done, right? The concepts were they were nascent concepts that would take life later on in the Souls games. A lot of experimentation there. Not everything is as clean and solid as they are today. It's an interesting one. The upgrade, obviously, it looks beautiful. We can say that already, right? It looks amazing. But as far as like a gameplay standard, I'd say go for Bloodborne always. That's what I always say. It's Bloodborne.
You were saying that before Bloodborne came out.
Yeah, what was I? I don't think I was.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about that though is if he's getting a PS5, if he is a member of PlayStation Plus, he gets that collection as part of being a PlayStation 5 owner, and that includes Bloodborne. So there's a bunch of old PS4 games in there. So I mean, like a no risk way to play that.
Right.
Pretty like an obvious choice. Go for it.
I think if you play Bloodborne and then you will know after 5 or so hours whether or not the Souls games are going to be in your wheelhouse, most likely. It does take some bouncing off. You probably will put the controller down once, maybe twice. Mm-hmm. But the key is if you pick it up that third time, right, and you cross that barrier. Once the barrier is crossed, there's no going back. You're a Souls fan for life. But not everybody does, and that's completely cool too. They're not
Cork,
right.
You finished Bloodborne this year, which is a nice achievement.
Yeah, I was there while it happened. I am being very to say that I finished it is very generous. I had some incredible help.
So do you feel like, did you pick up the controller 3 times? Do you feel converted? Or is that just a two run?
I think I have a better understanding of what people like about it. And there are things that I really do like about it. But overall, I think ultimately it's not something that I enjoy enough to put up with the annoyances. Like,
yeah.
If they were to make a big baby mode, I would be 100% all in on that. I just don't have the patience or time.
I kind of feel like I finished Bloodborne as well back when it came out, and I don't feel like it converted me into loving, even though I liked Bloodborne, I don't think it converted me into loving Souls games.
Yeah.
Because I played through Dark Souls 2 and that was kind of it. I was like, I think I'm good. I don't know if I need to dive in more, but all that said, Bloodborne, still a great game. And if you want to try that formula out, you might end up liking it. And it does give you a taste of what those games are all about.
Yeah, like I said, I guess wait to see what we say about the new one when it comes out.
I mean, I think we solved it with the PlayStation Plus. Like, if you don't have PlayStation Plus, get that and then get Bloodborne for free. So that sounds like perfectly fine explanation. Hey, Nick also sent in like a follow-up email asking about Visage and whether or not he should play it if he likes horror games, but he's a total scaredy cat.
No.
Which I feel like we kind of answered that probably previously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for people. We did kind of answer it, but just in the one sentence answer is if you like being scared, if that's part of if that's part of the fun of a horror experience for you, Visage will work. If you're the scaredy cat type, I don't know if you'll have an enjoyable time.
Yeah, he did say he liked games like Soma and like some of the Insomnia games, but
I mean, if you can handle like Amnesia, it's a level above that in terms of scares. But
well, the thing is, he said he liked PT, but he didn't like the jump scares in PT. So I'm like, probably not, right?
If you like walking in a hallway.
If you like walking in a hallway, this might be the game for you.
There you go.
I love walking in a hallway.
I do it a lot.
When is that review going up?
Walking in a hallway?
Yeah. You putting that up this week?
Maybe. There's a lot
check
going
the
on.
embargo on that one. Yeah.
Watch the site for that one, guys.
It launches with the new hardware.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Jordan writes in, aka Regular Lemonade. They write into the podcast. He says, "Hi, GI crew. I was watching Dan Tak slay a dragon in Genshin Impact when I had an idea for this game. Can you have any guess if this guy was watching Dan Tak slay a dragon in Genshin Impact, like what the game would be? What are your guesses?
A boss rush experience?
That's a good guess. Anybody
I
else?
don't understand the question.
He came up with an idea for a game by watching me fight a boss.
Watching Dan Tak stream a game.
Uh-huh.
And the game is called Video Game Witness Protection. Of course. Please assign these game characters a new cover identity after they beat the final level of their respective games. So, like, say this character goes through the gauntlet, finishes their experience, and like, hey, I need a new cover identity. I need a new job, a new city, and everything. So we're going to give them a new name, new job, and tell them where they're going to live now.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Video Game Witness Protection. First character, Solid Snake. What do you guys think? He's a good character.
Yeah.
I love him. He just went through the ringer. He needs a new place to live. Where should he go? He's already been to Alaska. I feel like Alaska's nice, and there's not a lot of people there. And
let's move into the Mushroom Kingdom.
Should he go back to Alaska, or is it like, you're there, you might run into somebody we should push somewhere else?
It seems like he left quite an impact when he was there last time. So maybe Minnesota, which is like a nice, if he enjoyed aspects of Alaska, Minnesota has a very Alaska feel, but there's also like cultural things that he can participate in as well.
The land of 10,000 lakes, yeah.
10,000 lakes that he can enjoy.
Yeah. I think as long as it's not a jungle or desert or Alaska.
Yeah.
I think he's good.
Yeah.
All right. It's settled. What's his new name? Solid Snake's new name. His real name is John, I believe. I don't remember his last name offhand.
Bob Dagnut.
Bob Dagnut. From Minnesota. And with a name like that, I think he's got to be like a plumber or something.
He's a hot dish chef.
Do you have a character randomizer?
No, but if we're putting him in Minnesota, then hey, why not, right? Give him something really, really sotin'.
So he makes hot dish at some restaurant?
Yeah. I mean,
it's a little hot dish making hot dish.
Bob Dagnut, just one more time.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounds right to me. All right. No objections. Second character, Cloud from Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
What is Cloud's last name again?
Strife.
That's right.
Yeah.
What a weird name. I think he should have a more normal name.
Okay, well, we can address
Jerry.
that. There you go.
Gergich.
Jerry Gergich.
Yeah.
All right. Hey.
Yeah.
Parks and Rec office.
Yeah.
I like it.
And then we got occupation and location?
Ohio. right? Or Iowa.
We turned him into a lumberjack, with that sword, with that Buster sword. He could chop trees
That's a good
hardcore.
idea, yeah.
Do you think he could grow the beard?
He just pulls a Dexter.
lumberjacks need beards.
Yeah. That look would probably do great on the internet.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to do all the characters, but final one, Marcus Phoenix. Any thoughts on that?
Ooh.
What's the new name, Marcus Phoenix?
Marcus
Again,
Phoenix. Nobody would recognize him anyway. He's just Marcus Phoenix. Gruff dude.
That's true. He is from another. He's basically an alien, right? Because he's from another world.
Yeah.
You could have said this about Cloud, but
I feel like, well, we know that Marcus Phoenix likes gardening or farming. Like that's kind of what he retired into. So maybe we could like put him in Kansas or I don't know, Missouri.
Yeah.
should he work at one of those like garden centers? He should be like the guy who
yeah.
restocks the tomatoes.
He seems like he'd be a really good bouncer. He has like the frame for it, and also he's good at like doing this thing and like
maybe that's a
side
hearing. Job. Maybe that's a side job at night. Yeah.
Maybe he's a bouncer at a garden center.
Wow, because they need those.
There you go.
Come in.
Granny gets rowdy at the garden center. Yeah.
Or would it be like a some kind of like dispensary in one of those states that allows that?
There you go.
It's kind of a meshing of
Colorado.
both worlds. Yeah, really tough guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
really
I
smart.
think that sounds up his speed. Plus, then he could chill out a little bit.
Yeah,
He's had a rough life.
He's a little too high strung. Perfect. Love the games. Please keep sending them in. Game Informer podcast, GameInformer.com. Once again, podcast, GameInformer.com. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have another email here. Phil from Smoky, Los Angeles. Phil says, the ranking of BB offends me. Do you guys remember this?
The ranking of BB.
Were you guys on that episode? We ranked BB from Death Stranding on our list of characters.
I wasn't here for that.
No,
one.
I wasn't here.
Surprise me.
Oh,
was he high or low?
I was here for that.
We were high when we ranked him. Oh, no, you mean the character? Yeah, he's very low. So if you guys want to pull up the character ranking, when we got our first person who wrote in wanting us to re-rank a character, so we're going to re-rank BB.
Oh my god!
You guys ready? So currently, go ahead and pull up the list of. Once again, this is our meaningless character rankings. GameInformer.com. We have a master list of characters.
Where am I looking at this?
Currently, it's on GameInformer.com. If you want to pull it up,
I don't know where that is. Is that on the website?
It's on the internet somewhere with the emails. You know what I mean? I can send you guys a link.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah. So we have a master list of characters.
There we go.
It's ultimately going to include every character ever from gaming. Right now, has 40 of them, which is very close to a complete list.
BB is below Funky Kong.
BB is very low.
And Tom Johnson, the hot dog salesman from Shenmue. What is going on?
I remember when he got on this list.
I think our argument was that BB isn't much of a character. It was kind of like, I think the
Gives you a thumbs up.
I mean, yeah,
it's very
I
similar to
agree with
Navi,
that.
right? So
Yeah,
Navi from Legend of Zelda is just a character that spouts exposition and tells you where to go.
BB shows his little baby butt at you because he's got moxie.
And that's all I wanted Navi to do the whole game.
Show me your little fairy butt.
Yeah, please. I would have ranked her much higher.
All right.
Here's the problem with me, Reeves. What if I agree with the placement?
Oh.
Well, we're going to re-rank it. You know,
All right.
sometimes we use science to make this list, and sometimes the science doesn't totally shake out. You gotta keep measuring, right? When you're taking scientific measurements, you got to keep measuring, make sure you're right. So sometimes the science needs fine-tuning. And if you agree with the ranking, then it doesn't move. But we'll see what happens.
I have a bold proposition. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Number 1.
That is very bold.
This is
Just
our
because
list.
he shows you your baby butt?
That's not what I said. That's the only reason. I just think it would be fun. Mix it up a little bit. Someone wrote in. They cared enough about this. I almost said dumb list, but I am not going to. They cared enough to write in about this. So let's show our support. BB from Death Stranding at number 1.
Well, I want to hear what Phil has to say first and what he.
No, it's irrelevant.
I love the chaos of this.
Yeah, I like to hear. Well, this is a segment that has no rules. Welcome, Alex.
We do what we want.
Thank you.
I think so. So BB has genuine emotions. This is according to Phil. He says BB has genuine emotions. This is evident throughout the game. He says Gladys does not have genuine emotions. Thus, BB should be above Gladys at the very least, which I don't know. Just because you have emotions or not, I don't know if that means you're a bad character. Yeah. So I don't know if I totally agree with his argument here. Because you can be like,
lack of emotion is an interesting,
Exactly. So a character like Spock who doesn't really show emotion, like that's an interesting character. So I don't know if I buy that particular argument. His second argument is BB is annoying, which I agree with him, but let's see what he says. He says, as a parent, so is my kid, but it's that annoyance which makes me love my child even more. BB is experimenting, growing, figuring things out. BB needs you. At first, it's a chore, but as the game progresses, you have a genuine concern and willingness to go out of your way for BB. BB realizes this and shows emotional appreciation for it. Here we see BB grow as a character with you. I have not finished the game, to be fair.
Yeah.
Dan, I know you fell in love with it this year. Quark,
I did.
how far did you get?
I don't want anything spoiled because if he grows, is he like a grown man? Does that little glass thing stretch? And
Not to spoil things, Quark, but your kids, they're growing.
Oh my lord.
They're currently in the
BB's
process of becoming bigger.
Yeah, BB number one.
Number one, you're still sticking with that.
Number one, absolutely.
What you guys thought of the character, but
number one.
All right.
I love him. I love BB. It was like definitely the first thing we saw from that game that was like, what's going on here?
He's got a little thumb.
It's a baby, and they named it BB.
I'll give him that.
Top tier wordplay.
Yeah, I did love the game. I didn't like BB.
You didn't like BB?
No.
Alex,
jump
in here, quick. Have you even played this game?
No, I downloaded it a month ago, so I have no ties to BB.
Okay, Alex is going to recuse himself, which is fine.
Yes.
I want to hear Phil's final argument, and then we'll talk about re-ranking him.
Yeah.
BB has a story arc, according to Phil. Navi and Funky Kong do not. Does Samus Aran even have a story arc? Question mark. That's his argument. I don't think. Look, you can be in a bad story or a game without much of a story arc. I don't know if this is fair to say. Overwatch, like the game, doesn't have a ton of story arc. I know it's all outside of the game, blah, blah, blah. Just trying to find a comparison. But those characters are real characters and have a lot of personality, right? Even as you play the game, if you don't know any of the story outside of Overwatch, outside of the game, those characters are real characters. So I don't know if I buy this argument either.
It's convincing.
But anyway, that is Phil's argument for why we should re-rank BB. He's currently sitting at number 39. Right below Navi from Legend of Zelda, right above Ashley Graham from Resident Evil 4. Dan, you said you don't like BB. Why is that?
I don't. I mean, I didn't think, again, I loved the game, but I thought it was just sort of a character prop for most of the game. I know there's a story there, which I'm not going to get into here, but like for the most of it, it just seemed like it was a mechanic stapled onto a baby to try to generate some empathy because you're knocking around a baby while you're sliding down stuff. You know what I mean? It was weird. But I never really got an attachment for BB. I like the other characters in the game way more.
Yeah. And Quark, you liked when the baby gave you a thumbs up and showed you its butt. And so that's your argument.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tough to beat it. I'm willing to compromise. Number 2.
Pretty compelling.
I will say BB was very cute in the trailer that I watched, but yeah, I don't know. Doesn't BB make you do a lot of things that are really inconvenient? Like you have to soothe it and all this other stuff that's just kind of typical baby things. So maybe it comes down to, do you like babies? Yes or no?
I mean, BB also provides useful effect. It's not just it's not just a thing. It's a give and take thing with BB.
Sure. Okay.
And you are supposed to build that relationship over the course of the game. And there are some meaningful moments later on in the game that can transpire due to that. But again, Danny, I didn't think the character was compelling.
Here's a question for you, because you've championed this character quite a bit. Should BB be above or below Bubsy the Bobcat?
You know where I'd play. I think below, but what hey, let's get.
You
nuts.
think Bubsy's above BB? I know. I just want to hear your genuine thoughts.
Bobcat. I think Bubsy is a cool character, and I love his '90s humor that he brings into play. All right, I love his quips. I love his puns. I love his jokes. I think he's a badass Bobcat with a razor wit. All right, and I think he's a lot of fun.
I wish it was BB the Bobcat. I think I would have voted for that character higher.
Well, let's here we go. Let's do a character. Let's give Bubsy BB and make a platformer out of that. Boom, $1 million idea.
Somebody make that game. All right, Cork. I got a compromise for you. Instead of moving him up to slot number 1, what if we move him up 1 slot?
Yeah.
1 slot. 1.
So he's above Navi. Because I feel like you made some good points. I like the thumbs up. Navi never gave me a thumbs up.
Right.
I can see him going above Navi.
I can put it. I think he'd go right below Gex. I think he could beat Tom Johnson, the hot dog vendor, and Funky Kong.
Should we do that then?
I think we got to. I think if we have this great, we call the council together for this, and we only move him 1 slot. That's not a whole lot of.
I think you should refresh this page. Actually,
Ooh.
Oh, did you already put him up
I
there?
think Cork may have stuck him at number 1.
No,
he did 0. The ultimate character.
Yeah.
He is a total 0.
Wow, tier 0. Kojima would appreciate this.
I can see that actually.
He's at the very top.
I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah.
I like it. I love it.
And I'm afraid I don't know how to do the fancy formatting that you did on the site. So. It looks like booty butt.
Oh, it looks great. It's like an epic. It's like separated from the rest of the pack completely. It is.
There you go.
Tier 0.
Oh my gosh.
Next week we got to bring in tier -1. I noticed this surpassed me.
Exactly.
We're going to do this.
Little did we know this was actually a continuum. This list is more complicated and interesting than you thought.
Okay, you guys ready for the final email?
Absolutely.
I can't wait.
Your Ghost from Boston writes in. They say, hello, I hope I got your name right, and I'm sorry, Your Ghost, that's probably not right, but I think I'm pronouncing Broston correctly.
Yeah.
I'm not
bright brains.
Right. Your Ghost from Broston writes in. They say, Dishonored is one of my favorite series, and I must say that I'm pretty displeased where Corvo Atano is ranked. Can you believe this? We got another guy same week.
I can't believe that.
Re-rank characters.
I used all my energy on BB. I should have paced myself.
Yeah, we can't do 2 zeros in one day.
No.
Corvo, currently ranked at number 30, right below Claptrap, which honestly, now that I'm looking at that, does feel maybe a little unfair.
Well, I remember why this happened. I mean, I remember how I made the case. Corvo's, you project onto Corvo most of it. He doesn't really have a whole lot of his own. Whatever, go on.
Okay. Well, that's fair. Let's hear what your Ghost has to say. He says, please consider re-ranking him, and while we're at the subject, rank Emily Caldwin and the Outsider. No, I'm sorry, Your Ghost. We can only do one at a time. We can only re-rank or add characters. We can't do both. We're not magicians. We're scientists.
Oh boy.
Okay, cool. So, Corvo. You guys have any thoughts on Corvo?
Yeah,
like Corvo?
I went over him the first time we ranked him.
Not everybody's listening to that episode, Dan. So to be fair, he's got a really cool look. I think I like his mask a lot, but you don't see it a ton, right? Because you are playing him through his eyes.
Right.
He does have really cool skills. He's a very capable assassin. He can blink. I love that power of being able to teleport. And then kind of outside of that, you don't really. He's kind of like Gordon Freeman. He doesn't talk
you sit
much.
around, you watch other things happen, and you react in the way that it's cool. It's a cool game, but he doesn't as a character. What? He doesn't do anything. You're there
not an active participant like Toad Jackson from Super Mario Brothers. He's
true.
Let's mix it up. I got to get in here and make my footprint on this.
Whereas Claptrap, I don't remember where we stand on him personally. Kind of an annoying character. Kind of funny. In the first 2 games, he was kind of funny. Definitely annoying.
Yeah.
But he's got a personality. I don't like it either. But
so
when you think of Claptrap, you know exactly what personality archetype that is. You know which character it is. You know what kind of stupid things he's going to say. With Corvo, he might mumble something before he kills somebody. That's about it, right? I'm just saying.
They should have called him
I wish I could come to, because I love Dishonored, but I
also like Dishonored.
Yeah. But you're right. I don't know. I was gonna say Dishonored 2 might flesh him out a little bit, but I played as Emily, so he was a hunk of stone for the majority of the game. So
Sure. Yeah. So does no personality outrank character with kind of annoying personality, or does the character with an actual personality get more points because they have a personality?
I think what's
How's
happened here is that the writer of this letter has inadvertently turned the Eye of Sauron on Corvo. I think we bump him down to 31.
Oh no!
Bump up Eddie Riggs 1. Do a little swap.
Eddie Riggs.
Thinking of the same thing, because I'm like, I think I like Eddie Riggs more than I like Corvo.
I do.
Yeah.
I do like Eddie Riggs more.
Or like even Earthworm Jim is cooler than Earthworm Jim has a cool robot suit. He's a worm in a robot.
He's a worm. Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's very cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think. Should have counted your blessings, my friend.
Oh man, I think we got to move down
Oh god,
2 spots.
Yeah.
Just right above Lamar Davis from GTA 5.
Yeah, just below
That seems
Earthworm
fair.
James. Yeah.
Yeah, Earthworm Jimmy. Oh man, Earthworm Jim's that's such a fun character. I want more
It's
of
a
those
really
games.
cool character, yeah.
Gosh, and he had like he would grab his head, his own head, his worm body, and he would use it as a whip. Like, how cool is that?
It's
That's
very
pretty
cool.
We need more of those games. All right, Earthworm Jim, underrated. But according to our list, better than Corvo Atano. So
Not for long.
there you go. I think
Wow.
that list is better now. I'm glad we re-ranked those characters.
Absolutely.
Cool. Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the show in a segment we like to call Get Wrecked. Who has something they want to recommend for the week? Jeff Cork?
Yeah, I would recommend, I think by the time this comes up, the Xbox Series X/S review that our dear friend Brian Shea wrote should be posted, correct?
Yes, should be.
Yeah, you should read that. I think it's a really nice overview of that console, and while reading that and also its companion piece, the PlayStation 5 review that Miller wrote, don't envy either one of those guys having to tackle something like that. It's a big project, but I think both of them did a great job with it. But for the time being, I think you'll be able to read the Xbox one first, and then on Friday you can check out the PlayStation 5 one. But I wrecked those.
Perfect. Dan Tack?
Get wrecked. What's up? I guess this week I'm just gonna recommend the Visage review because it's one of those. It's a little game, but it's a big deal. So check it out if you like horror stuff. Go give it a read. Get wrecked.
Alex? Any enthusiasm?
Yeah, get wrecked.
There we go.
I had to do my best radio voice. Yeah, so go like Jeff said, go check out the reviews. We got awesome video versions of the reviews as well. And then also we did a new gameplay today, me and Jeff, on Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered. So go check that out.
Yeah,
perfect. We have, if you're listening to this before November 7th, we will be doing our Extra Life charity live stream on the 7th, starting at 8 a.m. all the way through the following morning on Sunday at going up to 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. So for 24 hours, you can watch us live stream for charity. We're raising money for Gillette Children's Specialty Healthcare here in Minnesota. So you can help some sick kids by donating money, or, just watch us have some fun and play a bunch of games. You can play games with us. We'll be playing Jackbox, Pictionary. I think we're going to play some Halo. I think we'll play Among Us. A lot of good stuff. So come check that out. If you're listening to this after the 7th, the archive should be on the site, but I definitely recommend checking it out live because we're going to have a lot of fun. So that's my rec. Thanks for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to like and subscribe, or subscribe to the magazine. And I would say game on here, but we do have another thing after this, which is that interview with the Empire of Sin folks. So please stay tuned for that if you're interested in listening to the interview. If not, enjoy your day. What am I going to do? I'm not going to force anything on you. So you do you. All right. Till next week. Game on.
Game on.
Game on!
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm joined by three very special guests who are working on the upcoming Empire of Sin game. We have Brenda Romero, the game designer. How's it going,
Hello?
Brenda?
Good.
We also have Katie Gardner, who is the lead narrative designer.
Hello.
And Chris King. You said you wanted to be referred to as King of the Universe. Is that right?
If you don't mind, but I'll make do with senior designer.
Yeah, senior designer also works. I think it's the same thing. I'd like to see your business card and see what's on there. But yeah, welcome to the show, guys. It's great to have you all on. I played the game last week, had some fun, and excited to talk to you about it. But maybe to start, just to give people some background on the company and who you are. I think, Brenda, you're probably the most well-known. You've been in the industry for a long time. Just to give people a background, started in the Wizardry series back in 1981, which is crazy. Do you want to give people some background on how you got started on that?
Well, I was a kid, obviously. I mean, that's quite a while ago. So it was a dream job. As a kid, I was asked if I was willing to play games, memorize them, and then when people called into the phone, I would answer those questions. And this is obviously the pre-internet days. So I was a living FAQ, basically. And there's a part of my brain that still remembers all of that trivia.
That's insane. Did you have it written down on a notebook somewhere, or was it all just in your head?
Well, so it had to be all just in your head because, you wanted to, people were calling long distance, right? So you wanted to turn those calls over as quickly as possible. So your job was to memorize a game, to know everything you could conceivably know about it. And that means that some part of my brain is still holding on to that. And I even still remember, I remember the phone number, good evening, Wizardry Hotline. One of the most common questions, how do you kill Wordnut? Well, and I could tell you the exact path you have to take to get to the 10th level to kill this guy in the most efficient way to kill him. But anyway, that's how I started. And then I was going to college at the time. I planned to go get what you might think of as a real job. I interviewed with IBM and other companies like that. But I decided that I just wanted to keep making games. And that was a fateful decision, and I haven't left. So I literally grew up in the game industry.
Yeah, well, and I read somewhere that you may be the longest running women in games developer, add that qualifier, in the industry, which is crazy to me. So how have you seen the industry grow in all that time?
Oh, how have I not? I mean, it's grown tremendously in all kinds of different ways. Every conceivable way you can think of. I mean, when I started in the industry, it was one person, one computer for the most part. I mean, there were online games through colleges and through mainframes like, say, Empire. But for the most part, it was one person, one computer, and that one person typically had a lot of money if they could afford a computer. But it's changed, and now we have millions of people playing games. But then, there's still things that stay the same, like, that spirit of discovery. Every single year, there will be a game that makes us just go, oh my God. And certainly the industry is a lot bigger than it used to be back then.
Yeah, for sure. And Chris and Katie, I definitely want to hear from you guys too. Can you share a little bit about your personal background, how you got into the industry?
Well, I'll start. I was a late bloomer, actually. Unlike Brenda, I wasn't a kid. I was actually in my 30s when I started working in games. Before that, I'd been a beta tester, actually, with Paradox. So I'd been testing away games in my spare time, just giving feedback. And then a QA job came up. Just small catch, I'd actually have to move like 1,000 miles to go from the UK to Sweden. So I moved over there. Basically, we'll just dip my toe in, see what happens, because who knows? Maybe I'll just hate the Swedish lifestyle or just discover that, actually doing the 9-to-5 grind, making games is a lot less fun than playing them. And stuck around and didn't obviously leave after a few weeks, still here. And just sort of advanced through there, moving from QA into game design. And then in the last year or so, I was decided to move on from Paradox, and an opportunity came up at Romero Games. They were looking for someone to help out the strategy layer, and I'm going, well, I've done a bit of strategy design in my time, so I thought, why not? So I moved back home. Actually, I'm back in sunny Scotland at the moment, doing the remote working routine, helping out with Empire Sin. It's been fantastic.
Oh, you're Scottish. I couldn't tell.
No. Do you want me to come up with a bottle of whiskey to kill next
Yeah,
time?
no, prove it. Prove it to me. Katie,
Right,
what
so
about
yeah,
you?
that's my story.
Yeah, my background is more in writing. I from the States, obviously, from from New England, and I went to college for creative writing, but then went into work for didn't really go into creative writing path. I kind of was going between marketing and insurance, lots of other kind of desk jobs, and then when I moved to Ireland, I got a job at another video game company. And then when I saw that an opening had opened or the QA position had opened at Romero Games, and I was like, I'm definitely going over there. And basically started out in that position. Not really. I guess I had never really thought that writing for games could be a real job. And then when a writing position opened on the team, Brenda approached me and she was like, "You have a background in writing. You should write for the game." And I was like, "Yes, that sounds good." So yeah, I've been doing that for the past year and a half or so with the team. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So just to jump back a little bit, Brenda, I had heard you say that this is a game you've been wanting to work on for over 20 years. Maybe can you think back to that original genesis of the idea? What was the game you envisioned?
Oh my goodness. So I've tried it. I've tried it any number of ways. Like I was just, I guess if you just imagine sort of just it's a possibility space of game where there's every single idea, every single thing you could throw in there. Here is 1920s all contained in this mess, right? And I just loved the time period. I had since I was a kid, and so I grew up where I grew up. There was the longest continuously operating bar in the U.S., and it's still running. It's called Place. So I became fascinated with why they never shut it down, and my mother didn't really want to answer that question. Um, it, she didn't want to show me, like, I don't think she would have been comfortable saying, like, well, Brenda, the cops turned a blind eye. So because she didn't answer it, I just became fascinated with it. And so I started, and not just that, but just criminal empires in general. So when I wanted to make a game that was in that space, and I guess it's like you have all this stuff floating around and you keep trying it on different things. Like, could it be just a pure simulation? Could it be something like the movie, like a casino, but on the one side you're a good guy, and on the other side, you're a bad guy, and trying different genres on, and it's like sticking a magnet into a space and seeing what comes to the magnet. So I tried, I probably tried to make a game, or at least gone the route of coming up with a full concept for a game, but none of them really felt like they had the strength of this one. Like finally it felt like no, it's all coming together. Um, and it's a big game. It's system heavy. There's a lot going on in it. But this was the first time it felt like everything came together. Sometimes I know that there are games that crystallize almost immediately. I've heard those stories where somebody will say something like, they thought of it and they had this idea that, wouldn't it be amazing if, and then the whole game idea was born. That wasn't the case with this game, and even from the day, I write the pitch, it gets picked up, we enter production, even that idea is no longer true because the team has shaped and molded the idea. Everybody has had input on this idea and on this play. So what really is here is something that didn't exist even at the beginning of the project, and is a credit to the team overall.
Sure. Yeah. Are there any crazy examples of how it's morphed of like, oh, I thought it was going to be like this, but then we came up with this idea that's so much bigger, so much different?
Yeah, I would say like the very earliest idea, the very earliest version of Empire of Sin. Well, it wasn't even Empire of Sin then, but the very earliest idea. Now this is prior to production. Actually, you only played as Frankie Donovan, and it was the story of Frankie Donovan. But then it was like, yeah, but I want to play as Al Capone. And then then you get like I'm a huge fan of games like Civilization. Um, so the whole series. And so it was like, well, geez, if I could play, what if I could sort of play as any one of those mob leaders? But that is probably one of its larger story, well, from the game story's point of view, probably one of its larger changes.
Sure. Yeah. And so you mentioned Al Capone, Frankie Donovan. You have a mix of fictional gangsters, but then also some of the real ones, which is kind of an interesting choice. Just curious about the real gangsters you have in there. During the research phase, when you guys were looking at Prohibition America, what were some of the crazy stories you heard or crazy characters that you encountered that you're like, man, we got to get this guy in the game, or I can't believe this is real?
I can tell you one, but Katie's smiling because Katie has all these answers. Like for me, I'll give you just like, I love Daniel McKee Jackson, who is an undertaker. Like that's his real job, his day job, but he also runs casinos. But the fact that this guy was an undertaker should make you think twice. Like he can get rid of the bodies. And then I was also quite surprised by John's great grandmother Elvira Duarte's in the game. And I knew she owned a brothel, but I didn't really know the extent of her criminal empire in Nogales, Mexico, which we learned the more research we did. But for the actual crazy stories, I will let Katie talk.
Yeah, there was a lot that looking through newspapers and through even like FBI like files from the 20s. We just came across a lot of really rich, interesting material. So we used a lot of that for the gangsters and for the mission stories. But just I'll tell you real quick about one of the gangsters. Her name's Josephine Duty, and she came about when we were looking at female bootleggers at the time. And there was a lot of there were a lot of female bootleggers, and oftentimes if the police pulled over a woman driving a car or a woman in a car with a bootlegger and there'd be like a bunch of booze in the back, they wouldn't search the car because they'd see a woman in the car and go, oh, yep, they're probably fine, and just leave. So like female bootleggers were huge.
That's
but there
crazy.
Was one, Josephine Duty, who she lived by a train track, and she was just like making hooch in the back of her house. And whenever the trains would pull in, they would pull the horn for the amount of barrels that they wanted. So they pull like 3 times on the horn. She'd be like, okay, 3 barrels coming right up. And she'd like bring them back out. So they'd put them onto the train. But yeah, so she's one of the gangsters you can hire in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so amazing the lengths we'll go to have alcohol.
True.
It's an interesting substance that we've created. Great. Well, let's go top level too about the game. Maybe talk a little bit. Chris, you can jump in here too. Like, what is the game? You mentioned civilization. I can definitely tell the Civ influence in the game, but you're controlling gangsters as they build up their criminal empire in Chicago. That's top level. But how would you describe it?
Well, so at the very highest level, you're controlling one of 14. You play as one of 14 different bosses, and they have their own backstory, their own strengths, they have empire bonuses, they have diplomatic bonuses, and I should say their own underlying beliefs about that they are characters in themselves as AI. So your goal is to eventually become king or queen of Chicago. Now, how that all happens, I will turn that over to Chris.
Yeah, I suppose at a high level you could say, it's a classic morality tale of proof that crime does pay. And essentially, it's the era of prohibition. You are going to supply alcohol to the good citizens of Chicago who are going to then give you money for it. And then you're going to use that money to expand and defend your empire from other people who also want to supply the good citizens of Chicago with their alcohol. So it's in one point of view, it's a simple empire builder, map painter with a rich cast of characters and a lot of RPG in it as well.
Yeah, and then you get into fights, and those fights play out kind of like XCOM. I'm a big XCOM strategy fan, so that excites me. But I'm also curious. You have the XCOM style fights, and then outside of that, you have the empire building. How far can you go? Can you play the game and try to avoid combat if you want? Like, how far can that go?
Well, the canonical victory condition is you've got to kill everybody, right? That's how you will quote win the game. But it is a sandbox where you can fire up the game and do whatever it is you want to do. And yeah, you can, although there is quite a few aggressive AIs out there who will definitely be gunning for you, and you'll really have to manage it. You can certainly, do a game where I just want to have a nice little corner of Chicago and just look after my customers and, build up my rackets, and you're quite entitled to do that. But because the AIs themselves they're not, it's not a chess AI, making moves to win the game. They are characters in the game who are doing their own thing. And some of these characters are a lot more aggressive than other ones. So you will have to work to keep people away from your rackets.
Sure. Don't touch my special juice. That's what I call it. Can you talk a little bit about every character has special abilities that help them out in combat? Can you talk a little bit about those and give some examples?
Sure. So all the bosses have boss abilities, and also all the characters have talent trees that they can spend some time and learn a specific talent, which those will more often than not affect combat. But for the bosses, they have their own boss abilities, and I guess one that I was talking about John's grandmother. So this is Elvira Duarte. She's a 70-year-old woman who's in the game, and so she uses scopolamine. Scopolamine is how it's pronounced, right?
I think scopolamine, but yeah, I'm not positive.
Devil's breath, in any
Devil's
case.
breath, yeah.
Devil's breath is her special ability. I should have just stuck with that. And so what she does is this is actually a real drug that was used during the time, and it sort of renders her targets. It basically lets you gain control of those characters.
And this is historically accurate.
Yeah, it's historically accurate, and it was actually, Ian O'Neill, who's the combat designer. He did a load of research into these, so you really get a feeling that these are tied to the character. And we didn't want to have, we could have had Elvira, say, walking around with a giant machine gun, but she's a small woman, and actually, as much as I say we could have done, you can actually do that. You can equip her with a giant shotgun and walk around and do whatever you want to do. But her special ability allows her to take control of other characters in combat, up to and including police, or even other bosses, which can become particularly interesting. So characters have a chance to resist her Devil's Breath, but basically it allows you to control that character, and then after 4 rounds, that character will just cease to exist, which is also true to the drug that was called Devil's Breath. And this drug was prominent in Colombia and in South America, where Elvira, who is a real boss, absolutely would have gone.
Oh, wow. And where can I get some today?
You can get robbed in Bogota with it. It is still very prevalent there, actually. Yes.
That's amazing.
So it was a deliberate design decision about, do we make these here's how it was like, how do we want the player to feel? We want the player with every one of these boss abilities to say, holy like, we want you to feel like that was awesome. And the trade-off for that was awesome is that you can't do it all the time. So there is a cooldown on it, because otherwise Daniel McKee Jackson, it would be Empire of Sin by Daniel McKee Jackson for Daniel McKee Jackson featuring Daniel McKee Jackson. So there has to be a limit on how much. Oh, and I should say, I think this is also the first time. So Frankie Donovan, so he's based on my great-grandfather. And Frankie uses a hurl as a weapon, which is in Irish, the sport of hurling. So it's a wooden stick, but when used with authority, it's a weapon. And in fact, some people who play the game might also, not that game, but the game of hurling, might also agree that it's a weapon. And I don't. So he basically gets more charged up the more people he hits.
Yeah. So hold on. Was your great grandfather in the mob? Is that?
He wasn't. Not as my great grandfather was not as exciting as John's great grandmother. But mine. So since I grew up in northern New York, he walked across the river with alcohol, and he bootlegged alcohol in from Canada. But in fairness, most people there at the time did the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
You go back far enough. We're all criminals, I guess.
Yeah.
And so then is your great grandmother-in-law, or however you say it, is she also in the game?
So it's the family members in the game, just from my side, would be Frankie Donovan, whose real name actually was Patty Donovan, but I figured nobody would believe that. also born on St. Patrick's Day. That's real. John's grandmother, who's Elvira Duarte, and then a character based on John's grandfather, which is Salazar Reina.
Wow, that's cool. It's cool to have that like personal history too that you can bring into it. Was there like, did you research family history? Did you talk to like family members that are still alive?
Oh, absolutely. Like so I knew Elvira. I just wanted to make sure that we had a cast. I wanted to see somebody in the game. I wanted everybody to see somebody that reflected them in the game. So I brought up the idea of using Elvira, and then Katie and I, in fact, when we were just talking about her background, I asked John's aunt Yoli, like just asked some of the elder members of his family what they remembered about her. And Katie, you can probably talk a little bit about some of the wild things that came up.
Yeah, I think the things that really helped us when we were trying to come up with a mission for her were the fact that she ran brothels in Mexico, and she tended to take in the children from the brothels. So basically, she had all these kids that were kind of looked up to her as like Mama Elvira. So we tried to like play around with that in her missions. She also wasn't it that she won the lottery, and so with that money she was like, I'm going to build a church in my name, and just
she really did.
She really won the lottery.
Fantastic.
Yeah, she really won the lottery and really did build a chapel across the road from her house, which is still there today. It's in Nogales, Mexico.
Gosh, it's like real stories like that are so insane, and I'm curious, how do you craft like a narrative that is a game?
So yeah, we definitely borrow on the history to sort of craft the direction of how we want to go, but ultimately with the missions, they're choice based. So I mean, we can't be too strict about this is how it needs to be, because we want the player to decide, do you want to go this way or do you want to go this way? It's like, oh, do you want to do your taxes or not? It's up to you. That's not a mission in the game. But
that's pretty great. I mean, I know Brenda, you guys, this is kind of backing up a little bit, but you guys had decided to move to Ireland to work on this game, which seems counterintuitive because you were in California, which is like a hotbed of game development. So does Ireland like give you some insight into gangster life, or like why the move?
Well, the short answer is because Ireland's amazing. Yeah, I was a Fulbright specialist to Ireland, so I got a Fulbright award to come here and spent 2.5 or 3 months here and absolutely loved the community. And so like crazy people, we went back to the States, we sold everything and moved here. But that said, like, I mean, there's a load of game development and tech development in Ireland. So it didn't feel risky by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, Demonware is here, Havoc is here. So there's a lot of companies here, and Ireland is, 9 out of the 10 biggest tech companies are actually have their European headquarters in Ireland. So there was no shortage of programmers or game developers, especially when you're pulling from the EU. But in terms of how it helped the game, in Chicago, actually most of the tensions were between first generation and immigrant Irish and Italians.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that totally makes sense. Cool. Yeah. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about? Anything else we glossed over?
Well, if I would say, for me, one of the most interesting parts of the game is the rackets and is the economic layer of the game. So at first, you're just starting out with, in just, I guess I should say, like how interconnected and deep it goes. Strategy games are all about making, these minute decisions that add up over time. So let's say you're in a neighborhood, you've got some businesses. You can actually get synergies. So businesses that improve, like if you have 2 brothels, you will get 2 of a kind and you get a benefit for that. Each business in a neighborhood can only enter 1 synergy, and we have 5 synergies in total. You can also open a hotel, and that hotel will then power up those synergies effectively as the people in that hotel say, oh no, you want to go to those businesses. So there's also prosperity, which increases over time in Chicago with the Roaring 20s coming on. And so that prosperity, as prosperity goes up, that means people will start to want better quality of alcohol. So you can actually improve the alcohol that you're making or purchasing from other people, trading between other gangsters. And prosperity ends up influencing how much people, the better quality of alcohol, the more people will pay for it. But you could also trash prosperity in other people's neighborhoods by starting, gunfights and other such things going on.
Yeah, certainly body counts push down prosperity. So as a strategy option,
go figure.
Go off and start shooting people in another neighborhood. Then the people drinking there will start to rethink their choices and maybe consider moving to a different neighborhood to drink. So you can actually kind of suck revenue away from people without actually directly attacking and taking the rackets.
Yeah, and it's with the AI in the game, there's a lot of cool options. Like I have a tendency, as soon as I form any kind of like I've got some degree of trust built up with another boss. As soon as I have the option to ask that boss to take out another boss, I'll do it. And I did have, the last time we were on a stream, at the very end of the stream, I actually had a boss take out another boss for me, and that was super sweet. But there's Chris, you want to talk about some of the diplomatic options you have?
Well, I just say my strategy is most definitely not to do what you do, because then the person who does it gets all the rackets and becomes more powerful.
Well, so that's
that's your balanced strategy there. So you got, but that's a nature strategy game. Cool choices. But I mean, yeah, you've got the we actually have 3 stages of relationship, because you are gangsters. You do break the law, so you're not necessarily people you can just immediately trust. So we have the idea first of the non-aggression pact, where you agree not to shoot each other. And if you stick to that one, then you move on to the business arrangement, where you can do stuff like ask for favors, like taking out other people. And you can also you also swap your empire bonuses to help out. You give each other help powering up your empires. And the final one's a defense pact, where you'll agree to help each other if you get attacked. And that's probably the core part of the diplomatic game there.
Can you ride that all the way to the end, or do you have to eventually betray them and take over their racket?
If you want to win, do the canonical victory, you have to. But the other thing is, as the game goes on, the AI starts to cut down its number of friends. There's no love in AI. As a number of factions gets eliminated, the number of allies an AI will start to decline. And there's a chance that as you eliminate people, your long-term friends will go, hang on a minute, and punt you out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, just like real life.
Yeah.
And the bosses also, I guess they have their underlying personalities. I mean, they really are characters, and they play to that character. So Daniel McKee Jackson was an incredibly honorable man, and he remains so, in the game. And then now it's weird, because obviously we're talking about gangsters who kill other people. Probably the biggest or most ridiculous version of this was Dean O'Banion, who was an incredibly devout man, thought brothels were just absolutely not, that is not acceptable, and he was so against those, but yet would commit a murder and go to mass the following day.
That's crazy. Yeah. Did anybody on staff decide to try to make their own alcohol, as research or anything?
So I have made my own alcohol before. And I think I know Denman has tried. There is a shocking amount of whiskey in the office, which of course is now abandoned. But here's an interesting random trivia fact in Empire of Sin. There's actually characters wearing masks in Empire of Sin. And those masks were there prior to COVID. And they were there because it was just the end of the Spanish flu. So I've had a couple of people ask me oh, did you put the No, those were there because it was the last pandemic. And it's actually I keep when the kids are asking me questions about it, I'll, remind them that the Roaring 20s happened just after the last pandemic. So, I'm pretty sure that we'll have the same.
Yeah, hopefully it comes back for us. I'm ready for a roaring 20s again.
I'd say everybody is.
Yeah. Maybe we should roar on out of here. Well, that's Empire Sin. I know we're running out of time. You guys have to go here, but when can people get their hands on it? How should people play it?
So December 1st is the game is launched. It's on Switch, PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Mac. And you can actually pre-order it right now.
That's great. Well, the game looks cool. I'm hoping it comes together in the end, and I'm looking forward to checking it out as a fan of strategy games myself. So thanks again, Katie, Chris, and Brenda for being on the show, and
Thanks
stay
a lot,
tuned.
Ben.
Yeah.
Thank you.